Welcome to Let's Write This Movie. I am your screenwriter, René Garcia.
And I am your collaborator, Brian Glass.
Today we dive deep, deep, deep into the creative process. You like that?
I did.
Now let's write this movie. All right, Brian, but I'm coming out of it now. Now
Good
that I've
timing.
been mocking the delivery of that line, it's making me feel a lot better.
Good.
Art and
I'm going to try and
comments,
start
Brian.
the show. I'm going to try and start the show slightly less red than usual today.
Slightly less. You want to go and like put your head in the freezer or something for a little bit?
Exactly. Ooh, a bluish tint. Very
Yeah.
nice. Very becoming.
Just put on some makeup, bro. Get
No.
that foundation.
That's not happening. Drink it.
Yeah. Narrate my life.
This is a shoulders move. This is how
we
people
go.
type.
Are we beginning, Brian? Are you ready?
Always.
I have a feeling this is going to be a good episode. Just I just want to put that out there. I've got like good vibes about this.
Very cool.
Am I wrong?
I think it's going to be a very different episode.
Uh-oh.
But for
Different
good
means
reasons.
bad.
No. Different means bad.
So, Brian, how was your week?
My week was really good, man. Very busy. It's interesting that that this show, I think, in a lot of ways, has inspired me in other ways. So, reading what you've been doing and how prolific you've been, at least in my opinion, I mean, keeping up with this pace you've been great at that. It's really kind of sparked a little bit of a creative flow in my own work. So, I did try my hand at some writing this week, which I don't usually do a lot of creative writing unless it's for, projects I'm working on for work or for side things, but nothing really for myself. So, from that vantage point, it's been kind of nice, man. It's been refreshing for me to do that because I don't usually take the time just for my own thing.
Okay.
So, not sure if that's going to result in anything tangible, but it was an interesting week from that vantage point for me.
Well,
How about you,
good.
man? How was your week?
My week was pretty lax in terms of extra work, like paying work outside of my normal day job. So I had plenty of time, relatively plenty of time to work on the script. And I think that it showed in the writing. That's about it. I mean, I did feel, I think, I'm so geared to working all the time, to just maximizing every moment of my waking hours, devoting it to being productive. And I think I felt a little guilty that I didn't work on, things that could be making me money. Yeah. I was having this discussion, a little sidebar really quickly here. I was having this discussion with a coworker of mine that I have packed my days, like all I do is work is how I'm beginning to feel. And I know that's probably not good, but I haven't felt any deleterious effects yet, right? But in the back of my mind, I can kind of see a problem down the road, like a brain aneurysm or something, right? And I came to this realization that anytime I do find free time, like, oh, wow, this project got killed or something, right? rather than capitalize on that time to just relax and turn my brain off and like veg or whatever, I end up trying to get ahead and saying, well, I still have this other thing to do, so why don't I just move that forward? But the problem is the work never ends. So you're not really getting ahead necessarily, or
Yeah.
there's no point. There you go. There's no point in getting ahead because the work is unending. So there you are.
So you might as well take the time
To
for
work.
yourself.
Oh, nice. Oh, is that what you're saying? Okay. Well, my colleague told me I need to schedule the time, like actually put it in my calendar. I don't know. That to me feels like work. Like I'm working to not work. And I think relaxation should come naturally. I think that's what I'm looking for.
I know what you're saying there. I will tell you that I've given the advice to several people who have had issues with relationships and kind of being spontaneous because it's not in their nature to schedule spontaneity. So like just like a random Wednesday, at 9 p.m., there's a little reminder for them to do something for their significant other that otherwise they wouldn't have done. And they're like, really? And after they've done this for a while, it kind of becomes rote and built into their system, and they become more spontaneous by nature. So maybe there is something to be said for scheduling yourself the time, just to relax, because at the end of the day, it's your mind needs the break other than the break that, sleeping provides. Your mind needs that active break just to kind of disengage. Okay. I remember when I was in school too, that I'd be stressing for a paper or something because I was an English major and, we had a lot of writing to do as do other majors. But if I was stressed and I had a 10-page paper due the next day and I hadn't necessarily started it, I would force myself to go on like a 20-minute walk. And I would do that, get away from everything and just not even think about it. And usually by about mid-walk, things would start kind of coming to me. By the time I got in the door, I had like a clear, at least idea of where I needed to go. And I could just boom, just write, like nonstop.
Yeah.
So just giving yourself that break mentally it's important, man. So not only that, but, the fact that you're saying, you're doing a lot of work for work's sake. I find myself often in the exact same position with doing a lot of my own work and side jobs as well. And this little break that I took this week was very interesting because it really stimulated parts of me that I haven't felt for a long time. Please don't just use that one section of audio.
No, it's fine. I was too busy trying to think up something funny about like a dead limb you have or something like that,
But it was really it was really an interesting experience. In fact, quite honestly, it put me behind in some of my other actual work.
Yeah,
because
I know that feeling.
Such a weird feeling just to sit there and do something creative from kind of like having some tangible pages of my own was so weird to look at. And it kind of put me off like, wow, I didn't even know I could really do that, and meantime, time is ticking, and here I am just kind of in this self-congratulatory mode of like, I can write something. I wonder if it's any good,
Yeah.
So I think I kind of went the other, a little bit extreme the other way, and I have to find that balance personally.
Well, Brian, I'm excited for you. I think as adults of a certain age, yeah, exactly. And I'll just speak for myself. My creative pursuits have really been like backburnered. I don't know what I'm trying to get at here. I haven't really thought it through. It's just this feeling I have that I always have to focus on earning money and having something in savings, just in case. Yeah, I feel like that is the only thing worth working towards. And I know that sounds awful, so let me kind of like chisel that into something a little finer. It's the only thing that feels tangible to me, that I know if I do this, it will result in this. Whereas
Right.
all of my other creative pursuits have been gambles, right? And I've poured like almost a decade of my life into chasing something, and for it to not happen, that is a very bitter pill to swallow. And I think because I lost all that time on this gamble, that I'm in this mode of I need to just keep catching up. So there we are.
No, I totally understand what you mean by that. And it's a very practical way of looking at, the creative process and where it fits in your lifestyle. So I totally understand what you're saying. But hopefully, writing for this script, writing for this, basically for this conversation that we have every week is somewhat stimulating and has a bit of a payoff, maybe not financially, but a bit of a payoff in terms of something you can share and, kind of gives you that adrenaline rush. I mean, for me, it's even though I'm not writing for it, this is an endeavor that really pushes me along creatively. I've just really have enjoyed the process. So hopefully it gives you some of that satisfaction that's not necessarily financial.
Yeah, to be honest, it's nice to just be writing again. I'm rediscovering certain vocabulary that I don't normally get to use.
Yeah.
And I also like the problem solving aspect of it. The fact that you have to work within a form or a format, and I'm trying to keep descriptions down to 4 lines. I'm trying to whittle down dialogue so that it doesn't break into the next line just to save page length. And it's that constant that struggle of compromise within to meet the form. And I like trying to find the middle ground that shares the story I'm trying to tell. And frankly, I feel like the compromises I've made, they aren't really compromises because I'm happy with the way it has been shorn.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And I think it's been stronger too. Every subsequent read I've given to what you've produced has been real strong. And you've kind of given me a natural segue into something I want to talk about. But before I do that, I do want to ask you something or kind of follow up with something you mentioned a few minutes ago. And that is that you had a little extra time this week and you're able to produce writing that you're pretty happy with. And I don't know if that means it's more polished or you're just happy with the direction of it or whatnot. And I guess just a process question for you. When you're writing this week and you had a little bit extra time, did you find yourself kind of writing and then going back and editing more, to kind of give me a more polished version? Or did you find yourself maybe going at it a little more slowly and more deliberately so that it kind of came out a little bit closer to what you had originally envisioned?
That's hard to explain. I think I gave you more pages than I normally would. Like typically I'll have to go back and fix some pages and that eats into the new page count, if you will. But at the end of the day, when I go back and edit something, unless it's something really big, like the whole meteorite scene, it doesn't take me that long to change a couple of words or remove a sentence or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that I gave you, I think it's pretty much 10 pages, close to it, brand new pages. I think that is because I had the extra time. And as far as do I, when I have, let's say I had unlimited time, would I be going back and just like, just vomit a draft and then kind of shape that vomit into something? No, I think what I felt is I felt more of a freedom to just take my time and think about the dialogue and think about how I would describe this scene, what would happen next. There was less pressure. And I'm not saying that pressure is always bad, but having a little bit of breathing room can also have its benefits.
Well, I could tell you just, before we get into the text of all this, that it was reflected. I could definitely see what you're talking about just by reading the pages.
And I was also able to give it a proofread before I sent it over to you.
Yeah, and you didn't get any email from me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would like to talk about one other thing, if you don't mind, and that is something that I sent to you.
Okay.
So as I was, going through my preparation for this show, over the last few days, I've been listening to a podcast I really like, which is It's actually the Homecoming podcast, which, you know, anyone who's listened to that is a scripted fictional podcast. I think it's on season 2 right now. They are transitioning that into a TV show that just premiered a couple days ago on Amazon Prime, and for the first season. And what they did on the Homecoming podcast feed is they put in 4 episodes of the show Startup, which is about, you know, basically startups of businesses or whatever, or things like that. And it was actually the people who developed the Homecoming podcast, how they transitioned that into the actual TV show as well. So they kind of commingled the two. And the 4th episode, which is the final one in the series, has a really interesting thing that I heard. And it's a little section that I sent over to René. He's going to play for you in a second, featuring I think he's the writer director of Mr. Robot and now of Homecoming, Sam Esmail. And maybe if you roll that, then I'll comment about, you know, why that affected me.
All right, let me just run it now.
Art and commerce together. How do you make it work?
To me, the minute you start worrying how many people will this resonate with, or how many people will this, you know, attract, or what is a demographic of whatever it is you're doing, I think once you go down that road, it's a fail. I think creatively, when you start to compromise authenticity for what you think people will like, or what you think people will want, or when you start editing yourself because that's too scary and you think that will scare people off, I think the work suffers, the art suffers. And my core belief is what people want is maybe something they don't realize, and that you just have to run with that and say, if you make good art, even if it's scary to people, even if it's challenging for people, they will come, because it's in its core a genuine experience from the creator. So
that was a really interesting piece for me, and the reason that resonated with me was because I'm going back like two episodes now. This whole thing with the meteorite, you know, and my reaction to it, and living with that kind of discussion. And I mean, that's a very particular response, but I guess I wanted to talk about it a little more broadly, which is, you know, was I kind of squandering, you know, or squelching you kind of and your vision, and, you know, this whole idea of compromise and art versus commerce, and who am I as a target audience member reading this and reacting in a certain way. And, you know, I had a pretty strong reaction to that scene originally. And, you know, is it okay for me to kind of try and push my opinion on you as someone who's your collaborator, and say, you know, I think you're going to lose, you know, some of your audience here. And I think that you are going to lose me here, you know, as a potential viewer. Where's that line, you know? And this is just something I've been struggling with, because I'm really trying to look at it more as a broad discussion. Because I know at the end of the day, you still kept it in, you certainly, downplayed some of those science fiction elements, but, you know, as I guess, what am I now, a second time collaborator with you on projects, you know, I feel a certain responsibility that I know I'm someone that you respect in terms of my voice, but I am one person, and ultimately there's your vision, you know, maybe there's my feedback on it, and then there's other people, audience members, you know what I mean? And I just want to make sure that both what we did or what you did and going forward, that, you know, there's always that huge divide between the major decision maker here and your vision in this particular project, and, you know, the pieces that I bring in terms of criticism too. So I don't know if you actually listened to that little snippet or not, but again, it really affected me when I heard it, and I thought I'd share that with you and the rest of the listeners. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the snippet is more about, in the way I'm interpreting it anyway, is that it's about commercial success versus what you as a writer want to write.
Yeah.
And, I think it, in an ideal world, we would have the ability to, well, let me just rephrase this or recast this. If I were a trillionaire, so I have essentially unlimited income,
Yeah.
I would just make the movies I want to make, irrespective of what anyone else thought. Just, there you go. It's my money. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. Mm-hmm. Right? So unless you're in that situation, you have to work with other people's money. Right? So I think that commerce will always play a factor into the final product that you create. Mm-hmm. Now, if that means it's a fail as a piece of art, then, if we're going to go, if that's going to be the rubric, then I guess it's a fail. I'm not such a hardliner that I think that. I think that just like we are writing within a format, we are writing within certain constraints. You can still have art within that constraint. In fact, I want to sound eloquent with what I want to say here, but I guess what I want to get out is that without the constraint shaping the form of the artwork, then the art is, this is going to sound extreme, but I can't think of any better word. It's meaningless.
It's art in a vacuum.
Well, it's art, not in a vacuum necessarily, but art in a vast emptiness, an unending emptiness where the art no longer has form. So you think of water, water in a glass, water is shaped by the glass. But if the water were to just be spilled out on a table, it's just, well, not even that. If water were to be thrown into space, then the water would just separate and just be this indescribable mass that was always changing, and no one would ever be able to describe it. Whereas in a glass, you can say, okay, it's in a cylindrical shape, or you pour it in some kind of weird looking bottle. You can say it's taken the form of that bottle, and then you can describe the water that way. So I think that's the first part I wanted to discuss. But I think you also moved on to, taking people's opinions and being the final decision maker, and how does it affect me. I hope I'm representing what you said correctly.
Yeah.
But, I think we discussed this in the last episode, or at least in one of the outtake about taking criticism. And I've been thinking about this myself, I wouldn't say a great deal, but off and on since then. Mm-hmm. And I think as a writer, before you open up the project to feedback, to criticism, you should have a very strong sense of the story you're trying to tell. And what feedback can do is it can challenge your, how strong you are in your faith, how strong your faith is in your script, in the story you're trying to tell. And if people are persuasive enough to tell you, like, hey, this thing, you internally will think, okay, I'm really strong on this character being this way. But if someone is able to come up with a persuasive argument as to why he or she should be tweaked in a different way, then that's great. That's awesome. You are persuaded. So, you should consider what this person has to say. But just because they say something and they're emphatic about, oh, no, this guy shouldn't be Chinese, he should be an American Indian or something like that. If you're not convinced, well, okay, that only reinforces your faith in what you've written as being the story you want to tell.
Right.
Now there are times when, I'm writing the connective tissue that, I've got these strong iconic scenes. I'm like, yeah, this is blazing red hot in my retina. I know exactly what that looks like. How do I get these two connected? And then I write this connective tissue that, it's like, I don't know if this is good. And typically I would work on it. What's that?
Let's throw it out there.
Yeah, exactly. But, typically I would work on it privately and say, okay, well, Let's make it stronger. Let me get to a place where I can defend it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that's not the nature of this project. So I kind of have to throw stuff out there.
I gotcha.
And, if I feel like the connective tissue, the faith that I have in it has been overcome by a persuasive argument, then okay, I'll consider changing it. Now, that's not always 100% that I will change it. There are a lot of other factors here. Like, for instance, one of the things I said to you when we were having the meteorite discussion is that, well, look, this is where our experience in movies diverge, right? Like, the other night I sent you that Chinese zombie movie, very obscure Chinese zombie movie that I'd watched, on a whim a long time ago during the, the bootleg downloading era, when everyone starting to get high-speed internet. You're like, I will download the world illegally. Yeah, I was one of those guys. I looked up everything that was zombie because I loved zombie stuff, and I found this Chinese. What's that, Brian?
Allegedly.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Allegedly. And I saw this Chinese zombie thing. I'm like, I'll watch this, and luckily it had subtitles, and I loved this movie.
Yeah.
And
cool tone.
There are parts. There is at least one part in it that has made it into this film as a little homage.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so the point I'm making is that, if I'm writing in a genre that perhaps someone who's giving feedback is not very familiar with, they may find certain things odd, and they may find it to be, taking them out of the script. All of the feelings that you experienced.
Right.
And I have to know my readers well enough to add that kind of value to what you're saying. Now, if you're just somebody who I don't know and I don't necessarily respect too much, right? Or maybe you're just somebody who watches a lot of Hollywood movies, then I will degrade the value of your opinions and say, okay, your opinion, as emphatic as you are, is worth this much to me. Is that enough to overcome my faith in having this scene the way it is? So look, it's not an exact science.
Yeah.
It's all kind of very fluid in my mind, and I try not to take. I try to make the formula a little easier by removing my emotion from it and just say what is in the best service of the story that I want to tell. I know that was a little long-winded, but it had to be said.
No less long-winded than I was before you, believe me. Well, should we get into the shape of this particular water?
Let's do it, Brian. Let's do it. Oh, actually, before we do that,
yes.
Did you do your homework, Brian?
I have failed you here live on camera. I have failed you. I've not done my homework yet. I have my assignment sitting on my desk.
All right, that's fine.
But I'm going to see you live in person, and you will have it before that time.
Okay. He doesn't make an appearance again until the next section anyway, so
okay.
We're going to be fine.
I noticed he didn't come back, but yeah.
He's about to. I cut it off right before he comes back.
Right.
Okay, so we are starting. Just to set things up, why we're going back to page 47 is I rewrote this montage so that it has that visual carryover that we talked about, where there's something happening,
right?
Where people, they do something and it like carries over into the next scene in the montage. So, right. Brian, did you want to read this, or do you want to just like jump into the really new stuff?
I think we should probably read this. It's not that long. Plus, it's got it goes right into the new stuff. So, I think it kind of makes sense to read it. Although it's mostly me, isn't it? It's all me.
It's all you, Brian.
Why don't I read to you for a while?
Okay.
I'm going to start at in Fort Bliss.
Do it.
All right. Interior, Fort Bliss Infirmary. Minutes later. The soldiers from Epitaph carry the body in still wrapped in a blanket and lay it on the table. They exit. As they leave, an arm escapes from under the blanket and dangles over the side of the table.
Hang on, Brian, really quickly. Yeah. Just don't mean to interrupt here. I know you stumbled on that first in, the body
Twice.
In. I know you excised that last time, but it's important because they are carrying the body. I'm going to show my face here so I can gesticulate. They're carrying the body in to the room. I didn't want it to seem like they're already in the room and they're just like carrying the body. They're coming in through the door with the body.
Right. So when I read it, like mentally, I go to still. He's still
I get it.
not. You know what I mean? Now he's still wrapped. So I'm just going to add a couple hyphens in there for my reading this time. Let's do it again.
No, don't do it again. I just wanted
Carry
to
the
throw
body
that
in.
in there in case you were
'Cause
like,
it's-
can't believe this guy didn't take my edit there. It was just one word, 2 little letters. Had to keep it in.
Oh no, I understand what you were doing there.
Okay.
I just stumbled again. I think I'm just gonna. It should be the soldiers from Epitaph carry the body in, still wrapped in a blanket, right?
Yes.
And that's not how I was reading it because
It's weird. So does it need a comma there, Brian?
I think it needs a double hyphen actually, like an M dash.
Still, okay. Well, that would eat up like freaking. That's an M dash is like four spaces. I can't afford that.
It's like 2.
No, man, you got to have the spaces after the M dash.
You really don't.
And it
You
wouldn't
don't
even
need
be an
spaces
M
before
dash because it's freaking courier, right? It's all mono space.
Yeah. So just
there's
do a
no
double
M or
dash.
N.
It's 2 spaces. Interior, Fort Bliss, Infirmary.
Oh, wait, I pulled up the wrong scene. There we go.
The soldiers from Epitaph carry the body in, still wrapped in a blanket, and lay it on a table. That's right.
It took some time carrying it in.
As they leave, an arm escapes from under the blanket and dangles over the side of the table. Interior, undertakers, continuous. An arm dangles from a body lying on a table. Mortimer approaches and puts the arm back on the side of the body. Its bow, still dressed in his bloody clothes. The bodies of the posse lie near him. Mortimer goes to a different table. He dips his rag into his bucket of water that he fetched from the water pump and uses the rag to wipe the blood off a naked body lying on a table. Other naked bodies show they have been recently cleaned. Mortimer takes a step and stubs his toe. He howls in pain. Interior, old shack, continuous. The old man who bought the waters of life from Petrov howls in delight as he dangles the bottle in front of his roommate, another old man. The first old man laughs as he snatches the bottle away and downs it. He lies down on a cot to sleep. The other old man makes a face and goes to his cot to sleep. He turns on his side, grumbling. Then he turns again to lay on his back, clutching his hands to his chest. Interior, modest bedroom, continuous. The homely woman who bought the love potion holds it to her chest, shuts her eyes, and breathes deeply before drinking it. She sets the bottle down next to a small framed portrait on her nightstand and smiles. She blows out a candle. Interior, neat bedroom, continuous. A match is struck and it lights a small lantern, revealing Miss Stapleton in her bedroom. She opens a book and begins reading it in bed. She reaches over to a wooden cup and drinks some water. She frowns at the taste but finishes it. She turns on her side to get better light. Interior, prospector shack, continuous. Bud lies in his cot, trying to sleep. He turns on his side toward a faint green glow in the center of the room. It's the wheelbarrow, full of green crystals. It pulsates in the dark. Bud shudders, coated in sweat. His dog bite bleeds. On the other side of the room in his own cot is Bill, facing away from the crystals. He's also sweating profusely, trying to sleep. He clenches his fist tight and then relaxes them, revealing green glowing specks in his palm. Exterior, 9 lives, veranda, continuous. A courtesan marvels at the green particles glowing in her palm from the passing meteorite. People are still gathered outside in the street, getting coated by the green dust. The courtesan goes inside. Interior, 9 lives, upstairs hallway, continuous. In the dim hallway, the courtesan lights up like she's covered in glitter. A patron sees her and grins. When she looks at him, her eyes flash and lock on him with a predator's gaze. She charges at the man, and he's taken aback for a moment. The courtesan kisses him deeply, and he relaxes as he kisses her back. They run together to a vacant bedroom, passing Rebecca and Stan, who run toward a different room. Interior, 9 lives, Rebecca's room, continuous. Rebecca shuts the door and locks it, then turns around and pushes Stan onto the bed. She climbs on top of him and begins playfully unbuttoning his shirt. He takes her hands and caresses them. She looks at him, concerned.
Rebecca, what's the matter?
Stan is quiet for a long moment, eyes closed. He kisses her fingers and holds her hands to his chest. When he opens his eyes, they're filled with sincerity.
Stan, I think I love you.
He caresses her cheek and pulls her close to kiss her. Exterior, 9 lives, the next morning. Stan comes out looking like a new man. Men who pass by give him knowing smiles. Stan is about to walk off when a voice calls from above.
Rebecca. Yoo-hoo, Sheriff. Don't forget this.
Rebecca, wearing nothing but a bedsheet to hide her modesty, dangles Stan's sheriff's star over the railing. She lets it go, and Stan catches it with chagrin. She blows him a kiss before scurrying inside. Stan begins his day. Interior, Undertaker's, minutes later. Stan saunters into the shop. Mortimer is asleep with his head down on a desk. He's been busy. Most of the bodies are cleaned and dressed, except Bao. Stan coughs loudly, and Mortimer jumps up.
Stan. Morning, Mortimer. Mortimer. Morning, Sheriff.
He stretches and his back cracks. Stan inspects the bodies.
Stan. You been at it all night? Mortimer. Yes, sir. Least I could do for the families. They want a burial today. Last one to do is the outlaw.
He fishes his coins from his apron pocket and places a couple over the eyes of a corpse, then moves to another one.
Stan. Regarding Bao. Yeah, I don't care if you clean him up. No amount of scrubbing will ever get the dirt off.
Mortimer moves to the body of a little girl. Her mouth is open, and Mortimer tries closing it. It opens again. Mortimer shrugs and puts a coin over one of her eyes. Outside riders can be heard approaching, whooping and hollering. The commotion draws Stan's attention, and he hurries past Mortimer, bumping him, and he drops a coin in the little girl's mouth by accident. He sighs and goes to the window. Exterior, Undertaker's, continuous. Stan looks down the road to see a handful of men on horses dragging something behind them. As they pass townsfolk, they cheer and jeer. Stan runs up to meet the riders. Exterior, jail, continuous.
Stan. Carl, what's all this about? Carl. We got him, Sheriff. We got that Indian bastard been killing our people. We aim to make him pay.
Behind Carl, Stan can see the bandit leader on the ground. His eyes are bound by rope that is held by Carl, who has obviously dragged the bandit leader for some distance.
Stan. What about the rest of his gang? Carl. They didn't make it. I would have killed this one too, but I wanted the town to see that there's still some law in these parts. Let's string him up.
Everett emerges from the jail. Stan gives him a glance.
Stan. Get some wood and nails. We need a hanging post right here.
Men immediately jump into action to construct a makeshift gallows. Everett strides up to Stan.
Everett. That's it? No judge? No jury? Stan. This is a town matter, Marshal. You've got your justice, so do we.
As the gallows is assembled in short order, Stan undoes the rope around the bandit leader's hands, then ties the man's hands behind his back. Stan motions to some men to carry the bandit leader to the gallows. The men do so. Once there, the bandit leader's head is placed in a noose, and men help lift the bandit leader onto the horse. The noose is pulled tight, and the rope is tied to the gallows post. The bandit leader rouses to see the gathering crowd. Oh my God! Among the people are Zeke.
Hang on,
Sally.
Brian. You want to take a sip? Wet your
Yeah, I
whistle?
think so. Much better. The bandit leader rouses to see the gathering crowd. Among the people are Zeke, Sally, Chief Redfeather, Rebecca, Ray, and Maggie. Even Long can see what's happening from the little window in his cell. Stan approaches, pistol drawn.
Stan, you got any last words, outlaw?
The bandit leader turns his head to Stan, but it's unclear if he understands. He sees Chief Redfeather motion with his hand, telling him to speak. The bandit leader acknowledges and begins speaking in his native tongue.
Townsfolk number 1. What's he saying? Townsfolk number 2. I don't understand. Townsfolk number 3. Yeah, what's he saying, Sheriff? Stan. Christ almighty. Chief, get over here.
After a moment, Chief Redfeather makes his way forward.
Stan, do you know what he's saying? Chief nods. Good. Translate.
The bandit leader looks at Chief Redfeather for direction. Chief motions to keep speaking.
Chief Redfeather, translating. I am hides in shadow. My tribe are great hunters. We hunt the buffalo. Then we hunt you, the white man. We hunt you because you steal our lands and poison our people with your sickness. And you tempt us with your fire water, but never sharing. Instead, you make us work for you. Clean, clean always.
The bandit leader looks at Chief Redfeather, suspicious of the translation, until Chief nods to continue.
Chief Redfeather, translating. Now, the great hunt is over. You have killed my people. Now, I am the last. But I am not alone. When I breathe my last, my ancestors will rise up to avenge me. The spirits of the dead will punish you for what you have done. You will know fear.
The bandit leader falls silent. Stan rolls his eyes and raises his pistol, about to fire in the air.
Father Espinoza. Wait! Wait!
He pushes his way through the crowd. Stan sighs.
Stan. What is it, Padre? Father Espinoza. Let me give him his last rites. Stan. I don't think this man is a Christian, Father. Father Espinoza. That does not matter in the eyes of the Lord. Everyone deserves God's love.
Stan waves half-heartedly, and Father Espinoza prays quietly for a few moments. When he finally crosses himself and genuflects, the crowd cheers.
Townsfolk number 2. Get on with it!
The crowd roars in approval. Stan raises his pistol and fires into the air. The horse beneath the bandit leader rides away in fear, but the bandit leader is pulled off by the noose. He dangles helplessly from the gallows, choking and swinging. The crowd watches in macabre amazement as the last bits of life finally leave the bandit leader, and he's just a swinging corpse at the end of a rope. Carl nods in vigorous approval. The crowd disperses.
Maggie. Oh, that was so awful. Ray, have you ever seen anything like that? Ray. Yes, ma'am. Many times. Too many.
He walks off, upset. Maggie lets him go. She sees Everett across the way, look up at the body, then at the ground. He shakes his head. Interior, Undertaker's continuous. Mortimer goes back to work. He approaches the body of the small girl and is about to fish out the coin from her mouth when he hears people outside talking and passing.
Townsfolk number 1. You believe any of that hogwash about the diet? Oh, let's try that again. You believe any of that hogwash about the dead rising? Townsfolk number 3. Of course not. Only Jesus can bring back the dead.
Mortimer looks around at the corpses for any Mortimer looks around at the corpses for any signs of movement. Then he remembers the coin in the mouth. He brings his fingers closer, closer. He leans his face in to look inside. Closer, closer. He darts his fingers inside. He fishes out the coin without any issue and laughs at his own silly fear. He places the coin over the other eye of the little girl and walks away. After a moment, the little girl's mouth snaps shut in a biting motion. Interior, classroom, continuous. Miss Stapleton sits at her desk at the front of the classroom with her head down. The children sitting at their desks all watch her silently with worry on their faces.
Tommy. Miss Stapleton, are you okay?
Miss Stapleton lifts her head. She is pale and sweaty, eyes sunken, ringed by disturbing black circles.
Miss Stapleton. I'm fine, Tommy.
She stands and courageously walks to the chalkboard.
Miss Stapleton. Today, we'll work on penmanship. The first letter is A. She writes. A is for...
She collapses. Students rise in concern, but all they see are Miss Stapleton's legs from behind the desk, convulsing. A small girl approaches to help. Miss Stapleton goes still as the small girl approaches her. Miss Stapleton rises, threateningly.
Miss Stapleton. A is for apple.
She lunges at the small girl, who screams as Miss Stapleton takes her to the floor and begins biting at her face, taking a chunk of cheek. Then again a piece of ear. Then again and again. The other children flee, screaming in terror. Interior, old shack, continuous. The second old man who didn't drink the waters of life rouses from his sleep to the sound of rhythmic thumping. He slowly wakes to look for a source. Standing at the foot of his cot is the first old man, smashing his face into the wall. A bloody smear has already formed at the point of impact. When a new spurt of blood escapes the first old man's face, the second old man can't stifle a gasp. The first old man suddenly stops moving. He slowly turns, revealing his face. It's a mangled mess of broken bone and flattened featured. Then, with unexpected speed and ferocity, the first old man leaps onto the second old man, who cries out. Exterior, jail, continuous. A woman comes running down the street, screaming.
Sorry, I was expecting to hear something.
Nope, I stopped it.
Look at you. Sarah, help! Help!
Stan is immediately alert and approaches Sarah.
Stan, what's the matter? Sarah, there's a crazed man chasing us. Stan, us.
Jimmy comes running down the street, yelling. Behind him is Bud, foaming at the mouth and chasing almost on all fours at times. He claws at Jimmy, who just barely escapes reach.
Stan, Marshal, I might need your help.
Everett strides over, and the two men draw pistols. Jimmy runs up, out of breath. He stands with Sarah behind the lawman. Bud stops just short. He looks and acts like a wild animal.
Stan, easy there, Bud. Just calm down.
Bud's arm is a dark red and black. The bandage has come loose, revealing a festering wound.
Everett, hell, if he's got rabies, we gotta put him down. Stan, I ain't never seen rabies like this.
Curious onlookers have formed a circle around Bud. He swipes at them, if they're close enough.
Everett, it's your call. It's a town matter.
Stan grimaces and aims his pistol. He shoots a round into Bud's chest through his heart. He falls to the ground, dead. People step forward for a better look at the body.
Stan, stay back. This man is sick.
Maggie runs up to Everett and grabs his arm.
Maggie, oh my God, that's awful. I knew him. He worked for me for a bit. Siri? Do I have email? Oh, sorry. It's me. Let's take it back. Take it back before my email disruption. Maggie. Oh my God, that's awful. I knew him. He worked for me a bit. Everett. I'm sorry you had to see that.
Tiny screams interrupt them, and they see school children running toward them from the opposite direction.
Maggie. Tommy?
Children run to their parents that they find or any place they feel safe. They are out of their minds with terror. Tommy runs to Maggie and grabs her waist with both arms.
Maggie. Tommy, tell me what's wrong.
Tommy can't bring himself to speak. He just sobs. Maggie shakes him, and he finally points. Everyone looks to see Miss Stapleton walking toward them slowly, occasionally biting another chunk out of the small girl in her arms. Miss Stapleton's face is bloody, and chunks of child flesh dot her chin. Everett's face twists in horror. Stan can't believe what he's seeing. The small girl in Miss Stapleton's arms suddenly struggles and moans in pain.
Everett. Good Lord, she's alive. Draws pistol. You put her down this instant.
Stan approaches from a different angle, pistol drawn as well. Miss Stapleton stops, acknowledging them for the first time. She drops the small girl unceremoniously and just stands there. Stan and Everett approach cautiously. Miss Stapleton flicks her eyes on Everett.
Miss Stapleton. B is for boy.
She runs full speed at Everett with her jaw hanging unnaturally wide. Everett is so stunned that he doesn't fire. Miss Stapleton is almost upon him when a shot rings out and she drops on the ground, dead. Stan lowers the smoking gun. Everett comes to his senses and runs to the small girl. He turns her over to see half her face missing as well as parts of her arm and shoulder. Everett's face is a mix of unquenchable rage and unending compassion. The girl stirs.
Small girl. C is for cat.
She claws at Everett's face like a wild animal, oblivious to her wounds. Everett does everything he can to hold her away from him. Suddenly, the girl is pulled away. It's Ray. He holds the girl on the ground, face down, but still thrashing.
Ray. I got you, Marshal. This girl done lost her mind.
Everett stands to collect himself. He sees Stan examining Miss Stapleton. In the distance, Mortimer stumbles backward outside of his shop.
Mortimer. Oh, Sheriff! Sheriff!
He falls in the dirt, but gets up quickly. Following him are the corpses of the posse and Carl's family. They shuffle forward slowly. They moan softly, but it sounds like settled gas pushed out of their bodies by this unexpected movement.
Stan. Everett? What the hell is going on?
Bud's body begins to convulse, causing some townfolk to jump. Miss Stapleton begins to writhe, and Stan steps away. Everett and Stan slowly look up to see the bandit leader hanging from this noose, struggling against his restraints. Exterior undertakers, continuous. As people back away from the newly risen posse and others, the last corpse to emerge is the little girl. She catches Carl's attention. He falls to his knees, tearing up.
Carl. Molly? Oh my God!
Molly begins to move in Carl's direction. Carl opens his arms to her. She opens her mouth when he's close, baring teeth. Interior, Fort Bliss, barracks, continuous. Soldier number 1 rouses his fellow soldier from Epitaph.
Soldier number 1. Come on, get up. We're missing Chow.
The other soldier gets up to get dressed while soldier number 1 steps into the hallway. In one direction, he can see the mess hall and hears the din of breakfast. He glances in the other direction towards the infirmary. He does a double take. In the doorway is the dead Epitaph soldier, now risen.
Soldier number 1. What in blazes? You died.
At the sound of a human voice, the dead soldier stumbles forward, swaying side to side like a ship in a rough sea. Nice, man.
That's
a fun read.
That's what I'm saying. I thought it read really well, and it's interesting in a new way. I mean, the rest was everything before this was interesting because we're understanding the character dynamics and how they relate to each other. This is interesting because you're genre bending now, blending, whatever you want to call it, and I love it. I love that we as movie going audiences, we all understand like the archetypes of Western movies, and to suddenly see those archetypes have to deal with the archetypes of a zombie movie, I think that is a compelling reason to watch this film.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun too. I mean, it's kind of like the magical moment of the movie.
Yeah.
When it shifts, and I thought it was handled so interestingly, and part of it was the setup with your segues, which I thought were just brilliant, man. I love those. I love that idea. I think it was just really clean and fun and interesting. And I think that like anyone who's reading the script, number 1, and anyone certainly who's directing it is gonna be like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, I got a really clear understanding of what this is. Now, what can I do to make it even better? What can I do to bring a visual style to it that's gonna, that's worthy of it? But it's like, this is a really interesting. First off, it's very interesting the way you did it, in that it's got that really smooth flow to it. And also, I think the writing was really good. There's some really good parts in here. Things I don't usually read. I think my favorite line, let me find it real quick. Even though it's tough to read. Hold on. I think it's about the little girl. Good show right here. Bringing the quality entertainment to the show. Hold on.
Oh, no, that's fine. Take your time.
I think I went, I know it. I put all my pages out of order.
Is it when she's being eaten alive? Is that what you like the most?
It's the writing, just the visceral. Miss Stapleton's face is bloody and chunks of child flesh on her chin. I'm like, oh man, that's not a line I think I'll ever read in any other context.
Yeah, I wanted to, like, while you were reading it, I wanted to make a face at you because as I was writing that, I was like, Brian's gonna love reading that. Chunks of child flesh, just that alliteration.
Well, I tried to give it, I tried to do it justice because I know how you read.
Yeah.
I know how you write. You're like, you do that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and really play up where René is trying to kill me. Now, on my note, it just says yuck next to it, but I mean, it's a good yuck. That's what you're going for, There's there were a couple times I really enjoyed that. And also for our viewers, they can't see it, but I typically print out my script like this, and I will hold it over René's face as I read, because I don't want to see any reaction, because I know he's laughing sometimes. And he'll pull me out of the moment. I'm trying to get into the groove as I'm reading.
Yeah, no, I thought you read really well.
The second half well.
Well, I thought you read the whole thing well, and I think I can sometimes tell when you have a positive opinion of the pages, depending on how well you read it.
Right.
And I think actually this is probably what a lot of actors would say as well, that when their read of it and it's easy to memorize and all of that, when it just flows for them, then they know they're reading a good script.
Right. Yeah. Well, I will say you're right in a lot of cases, but if I can just give you some early feedback on this.
Oh, please do.
I think this is the strongest, cleanest writing I've read from you overall.
Okay.
I mean, there's very little that I have in terms of notes on this. In fact, I want to do something a little different now, kind of spring something on you, if you don't mind. Few minutes.
Hang on a second, Brian. Let's back up there, because you froze for, like you said, let me spring something on you if you don't mind, and then you froze. And I was like, is he thinking of what to say? And then you came back with a few minutes, and I'm like, must have missed something.
Are we better now?
We're good now.
Okay, cool.
Spring it on me.
All right. So I want to discuss a little bit about my role on this show versus my role in this project.
Okay.
And talk a little bit about what those are and why I'm distinguishing between the two, because I think they're a little bit different. I look at my role in the project in kind of two ways. First, I have to provide critical notes, feedback, issues that address, or issues that stem from this project. So these are the more substantive type of items, like if there are unclear characterizations, motivations, actions, or something that's questionable or inconsistent in terms of the characters or plot, ways that we can maximize the scene order or what's within the scene to help them land as powerfully as possible. These are notes that I think are productive, generate conversation, and they usually lead to a more polished script. My job, as far as I see it, is to focus on the bigger picture, and ensure that all the small details are in service of that vision, of your vision. But it's also to call out some of the smaller items as well, in terms of my duty here. So something that's questionable but much smaller in scope, like maybe the action's a little bit confusing. It's not quite on, there's something about it that left me wondering something, looking at errors and choices of word choices and things like that. These are types of notes that are useful, but I don't think they're substantive by any standard. So the reason I'm calling these out now is because you just gave us 10 pages to discuss. And I have several notes on here that I've written, but the majority of them are not substantive. And to me, the prudent thing to do in this situation is to relay them to you via my scan notes. I don't think there's really a lot of benefit in us going over these little kind of minutia. So, I mean, if we were not doing the show, we were just discussing these off camera, I would just tell you the same thing. I would just say, hey, let me just scan these and send them over to you. You can see if you want to accept them or not, but they're minor, you know what I mean? And they're so minor that I think that to waste time talking about it just is not useful. But I'd rather spend time looking at the larger notes, and there are no larger notes. They're just, I would say maybe 3 notes I have that are actually of importance for this entire 10-page list. So before I get to those, do you want to comment on anything I just said, or shall I just go into it?
That was a lot to digest, and
that's how I roll.
I'm not sure I got all of it, processed all of it rather. So I think I agree with everything you've said about your role and what you're supposed to do here. I think here's, I don't know if this is exactly the perfect response, right? But I think I don't want you, the one response that comes to mind that is coming to the top of everything that's just like running through my brain right now is I don't want you to feel like anything that you want to discuss or any feedback you have is useless. I think that as a creative person, even if it's something that you just think, like, you pointed out how you enjoyed reading this one part.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking about those things because it may lead to something else that I want to talk about, or, some kind of just a little bit of revelation about the creative process. And I think that's interesting, not just to have a conversation about, but also as part of the show for other creatives who are watching this. So, please don't feel like you need to hold back anything. Now, if you, as a kind of like a new format for this show, if you want to take the show in a different direction and just talk about these big things as you're about to do, then I'm happy to explore that as well. There are no rules for this show yet, and I'm happy to explore new ideas.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if I have anything that I think is compelling that I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that these were really clean pages.
Yeah.
Just well constructed, and the things that I'm going to say are things like you even mentioned in your blog post, the question you had about the characterization of some of these players who don't have names.
Yeah.
If there'll be any confusion. I will say that there is one instance of that.
Second old man.
Yeah.
Old man who didn't drink. Old man who smells bad.
Smelly old man.
Exactly.
Actually, that's one of my notes is one of those minor things, like maybe you could differentiate between the two.
Totally.
Instead of old man 1 and 2, maybe it is smelly old man, or maybe one guy has three-limbed old man. I don't know.
Or maybe he's missing an eye. One eye old man. I'm trying to think of like something that is a short descriptor, but is also very memorable.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, there are things like that.
Well, I was thinking this. How about old man and old man roommate? And then, instead of, and the way I write the description, I will use old man roommate as a name.
Right.
Instead of saying the bandit leader, I'll just say bandit leader does this.
Right.
I know it sounds like Cro-Magnon man speak, but I think it will also make these descriptive character names like more indelible.
I agree with you. And I mean, to me, it was only that one part.
All right.
And they come back later. So I was like, wait, which one is old man 1 and 2? Okay. I think old man 1's the one who bought it.
Yeah. Right.
So anyway, yeah, but I mean, honestly, most of the other stuff is so minor that there's nothing really worth bringing up other than these actual notes. Otherwise, I would go through like we have been, like page after page. And since you don't want too many compliments, that's fine too. Otherwise, that's all I'll be doing is complimenting you for 90% of what I'm about to say.
Well, if you like something, we don't have to. It doesn't just have to be. Oh, I really like that. Right. I don't mind compliments. I just want the compliments to be constructive and either constructive towards the script or towards the show. So if it means it opens up discussion, like, hey, why does Miss Stapleton, why is she uttering these educational things? A is for apple, right? Yeah. And why do the infected students start saying it, or at least this girl, as the first piece of evidence of that? If you want to talk about that, I can talk about that.
I can tell you what I inferred.
Okay, yeah, please.
My inference is, and then this is someone who doesn't have the background of the zombie lore, but my inference was something about the fact that they were now connected because one was eating the other, that there was something being passed on in terms of, I don't know if it's knowledge or something else, but there's like a link between the two of them now. Which is why she was kind of able to carry on the conversation. The C, I can't remember what C was for, but that's at least what I was inferring. And I mean, you can certainly explain it, but to me, that was kind of that was one of those cool things that I didn't really understand why it was happening, but I liked that it was, and I think it was mysterious, and I think this whole area is mysterious because as you know, even though we're not going back and reading what happened before, I can very clearly remember that all these other things just came into play, and I don't know what's causing it. Now I don't know, why these things are happening, and it's hard for me to put it all together. So that whole experience turns into kind of a fantastical type of atmosphere. So I don't know why it's happening, but it's just like, it's kind of cool.
Okay.
The way it's playing out.
Yeah.
So I've it's kind of like, you have to accept the premise, and if you don't accept the premise, you're probably going to have a lot of problems with it, and you're going to need those explanations.
Right.
I'm one of those people who tries to just accept the premise and go along with it and see if it feels like it belongs.
Sure.
And I felt like this was like a natural progression for what just happened in the montage.
Okay. So this is going back to episode 1 where we went over the treatment, and I was toying with the idea of some zombies run, some zombies shuffle, some zombies spit, right? And you threw out this idea of kind of sectioning off the different zombies by type, where like the piano player zombie might have super hearing, or the guys who spit all the time, they now have like acidic spit. Or the guys who drink, like they can only be satisfied by drinking blood, things like that. Right. So while that idea by itself I wasn't really keen on, but I liked the general idea of being able to segment the type of zombies. So instead of, I have 2 types. I started off with 2 types, which is you have the infected who are pre-dead, right? And I think I show that here. Even though people may not understand it yet, you have people who are infected, but they're still alive and can still be killed like a normal human being can be killed, right? Shot through the heart, they die. But once they're dead, then they come back as a zombie, the slow-moving zombie. And they don't have any of their unique abilities or anything. They're just a zombie.
And they can't talk and things like that.
Yeah, they don't talk, none of that, right?
Right.
So that's where I was starting. But then I thought, well, it would be cool if I could teach the audience that there are different types of zombies based on their actions. So, you have the teacher. Well, let's back up a second. So just keep that in mind. I'm trying to segment the zombies. But how would I do that? So with the teacher, I had her teaching the class, and this is something she's teaching them. This is like the last thoughts in her mind are these lessons. And I thought, well, what if these people who are infected, they, because their mental capacities have been diminished by this infection, they are being reduced to the thing that is either the most recent or the thing that they normally do. So if we go back to like the spitting thing, the people that Bill kills because he's infected and his spit is now communicative, like it's some kind of like carrier for this infection he has. So maybe the other people that he infects, they also spit, and their spit is, it's dangerous, it's acidic, it can infect you, kind of thing. So people will know that when they see spitting zombies, oh, okay, the Bill was the patient 0 for that, right?
Okay.
And so same thing with the teacher. She is, the last thing that she was doing is this, these lessons, and it's through the alphabet. And I think it would just be creepy that, when we run into other children and they are infected, later in the movie, we'll just assume that they were attacked by other children or whatever,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Every time you run into them, they are saying some kind of lesson, some kind of thing from the alphabet. And so you'll always know. I mean, I just think that, if you're surrounded by all these children and they're like, D is for dog or whatever, right? And it's just like a mob of them. I think that can be disquieting, right?
Right.
So on that, and I know I might be spoiling a little something for you, Brian, but
right.
You're the collaborator, you're not the audience. You know what I mean?
Right.
I thought, okay, I have the courtesans being infected by the meteorite. So I changed, and I have Rebecca saying yoo-hoo, and she's on the veranda. I made that something that they all say, that, when instead of like, I said that they were beckoning men with handkerchiefs on the veranda earlier, and now they're just they're just posing.
Yeah.
As per your suggestion, I now added that they say yoo-hoo, right? These women. So that's like their call to men is yoo-hoo. And so whenever we see these courtesans who are now infected, the thing they'll be saying is yoo-hoo, right? And I just think it would be this awesome, like creepy scene because, they kind of glow in the dark because of all the specks on their bodies from the dust. It would be cool if like our stalwart group, not stalwart isn't the ragtag. There you go. They're going through a dark part of town, and then suddenly you just see these like, these glow in the dark women. I mean, they're not glowing in the dark necessarily, but you just see all these specks of, that are shaped in bodies, and you don't know what you're looking at, and they step out right into this dark alley, and you just start hearing yoo-hoo, and it just like echoes down the alley because you have all these infected courtesans. And I want the audience to have that sensory memory.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that sense memory of they know exactly what the danger is because they've been conditioned throughout the movie that whenever they hear yoo-hoo, it's a courtesan and she is infected. Right? So just little things like that. I don't know if I have anything else that I'm building, but there you go. I mean, there might be something with the old man, he smashes his face. Like anyone who has like a smashed face, that's their thing. They smash their faces, like the flat faces. That's what I'm going to call them, right? The flat face zombies.
Are the other characters going to refer to them like in certain ways?
So I was thinking,
groups.
Here's what I was thinking. So in the kind of like, they have made when the two groups of survivors have made their peace with each other and they realize, okay, we need to stand together and get through this. After they have the whole getting ready montage, in the either in the outpost or the sheriff's the jail, the sheriff's station or whatever, and they tool up. I was thinking that we would have a scene where they're standing on the roof of a building and they're planning their route to get to Sally's, and they're pointing out the different kinds of zombies. All right, we got to look out for the yoo-hoos. Got to look out for the flat faces or whatever,
Right.
Don't let that one spit on you. Just things like that.
This has all the makings of a video game now. They can turn this into, I can see playing this game now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Chapter 1, Sally's. That's awesome, man. And I think it's great that, like, again, I don't have the same background as you do, but it sounds like you're putting your own twist on the zombie genre, and you're doing some world building here in terms of what they're capable of. And I love that. I love the idea of just kind of creating it within the general boundaries, but kind of making it your own. The memorable zombie movies that I've seen are not like the George Romero ones, and they're classic, I guess, but the ones that really stay with me that I can still recall pretty well are things like, the World War Z, where they're moving quickly, or I guess that's 28 days later, I guess, was one of the first ones that did. I guess there have been a few, but and then there's the thing like with the Will Smith one. I don't know if they're
I Am Legend.
Yeah, the zombies they're just kind of like they're kind of an infected type of group, if I remember correctly. Those types of things where it's kind of playing with that kind of archetype and making it their own. I think those are really interesting. So I think this is cool. I love this world building. It's great. It addresses my third one of my issues though, because I did have a question about the is this an infected versus zombie thing because of Miss Stapleton and the child talking.
Right.
So we've kind of discussed that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Can we go to 50, the bottom of 54? And I'm not sure how this shows on the screen, if you can show like the bottom of 54 and top of 55 at the same time.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Because that's kind of that first little bit, where we've now they've turned. And so we've got Miss Stapleton, and this goes into the old men. Mm-hmm. And, when I started reading this, I don't know if it was purposeful or not, but I started reading it kind of like an echo or a continuation of the montage that you did, where you have those nice segues. And I was reading the Miss Stapleton thing, and then going into the scene with the old man, I was almost like in my head, kind of pre-directing this, and I can hear like chomping to the same beat that boom, the guy starts hitting his head. You know what I mean? There's like this this audible thing because like right after this is where he has this thing where he leaps on the second old man who cries out.
Yeah.
And then you have a woman who's screaming.
So that part was on purpose. I thought, oh, that'd be cool. This guy cries out, and there's this other person screaming.
Right.
And maybe the audience thinks like, oh, he's like running away, but no, it's someone else.
Right.
And so it's this. I was toying with this idea of like disorientation for the audience. Like, wow,
okay,
this is just like happening all over the place. A lot of problems going on all of a sudden.
Right. Well, I just felt like it felt like a companion to the earlier scenes. Like these are like these are setups here. The boom, the payoffs, boom.
Yeah.
Like, they're really macabre. Like nasty.
I thought about that. Or I thought about okay, let me mirror the non-Taj now. And then I thought, man, that's going to be a lot to write. I got to work in the homely lady. I got to work all of this stuff in. In fact, notice she's missing from this.
Right. Right.
She doesn't get paid off. And I thought, maybe I need to put her in here, but then I need to build the guy that she's after. Mm-hmm. And his name is Patrick, by the way.
Okay.
Patrick.
New character.
Patrick.
Father Espinosa almost went Irish during his reading.
Oh, hey, what do you want, man? I don't do Hispanic. And I can't hear myself in these things. So, I was rehearsing it a little bit, and I was like, that sounds Hispanic enough. I was actually watching
his Irish,
like some clips on the internet for like trying to get like, oh, how would they say it?
Right.
I didn't have enough time to get it down, so whatever.
That was his Irish.
Spirish?
His Irish.
His Spirish. He was adopted, all right?
Well, I saw, there was that the homely one wasn't paid off, and I just kind of figured she's going to show up later.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to have to do.
In a room or something.
Well, I need to go back and add the clerk in the bank in that, the flashback when they're talking about the silver. The clerk in the bank, old man prophet drops this big, silver ore in front of him. I need to give that clerk a name. He's going to be Patrick.
Okay.
And on the homely woman's nightstand, the picture frame will be of Patrick. So I need to say that as well. And I'm kind of proud of this, and I almost don't want to tell you so you can discover it, but I'm going to tell you anyway, so you can tell me if it sucks. So she will be chasing him. Like, he'll be one of the survivors, but then they'll run into her, and she'll be chasing him specifically. And she's infected. She's not a zombie yet. But the thing she'll be saying is, he loves me not. And, when she gets him, he's going to die. When she gets him, she'll be like ripping off his limbs, like a flower petal, but it's the limbs instead.
No, I think that goes with the tone, man. You got to keep that. You got to keep that. Wow. So I've lost my train of thought after that one now.
Oh, sorry, bro.
No, I was going somewhere and I don't remember what. I can't even remember. Well, anyway, I like the idea though. If I don't know if you want to write it in or not, or if that just leave it up to the reader / director of that. But I felt like it'd be a funny segue between the two of her chomping at a steady beat and then the head banging coming in. Up to you. But I kind of got into the mode, man. I was reading.
Yeah. No, I didn't even think about that. That's
dive into this. So, okay. The other note I have, and it's not really on a page. I mean, you can go, but it's more of a discussion for you. Because as I was rereading it and we were acting it out, it's not as evident to me, but something that struck me like the first couple of times I read through these pages was the characterization of Everett a little bit. So once the outbreak begins, Everett is essentially confronted by two, I guess, infected, we'll just call them turned of some sort.
Yeah.
he faces Miss Stapleton and then the small girl, and he's not the one who ends up shooting Miss Stapleton. Stan does that, right?
Mhm.
And he's not the one who is really able to subdue the small girl. You know, he's kind of taken aback and shocked by this whole thing, and Ray takes her away. And I felt like it was kind of taking some of his strength of character away. Like it was making him, I don't know if it would be indecisive or just a man of inaction or just not someone who's, taking control of the situation. So to me, it weakened the character a little bit. And I didn't know if that was something you were going for as part of an arc for him or, if it was intentional. But it was something that struck me. It's kind of like the other side of Long. Like I want Long to be that really cool guy and play that up, and I want Everett to be, kind of his equal. When they finally have that showdown, I want these to be two men of strength and character. And I just felt like I hated that Stan is the one who took the shot, and I hated that Ray was the one who took her away. I wanted Everett to be the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. And
yeah. Well, I mean, he may have plenty of opportunities later, so.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just putting it out there to you because I'm only looking at a fraction of the story,
right?
With
right.
this, so I don't know where that goes.
So, how do I explain this? We have Long, who is a killer, and he kills when someone is in his way, really, right? Mm-hmm. Stan, I think, has a similar mentality, but he's just a little bit on the other side of the law on that, right? Everett, I'm trying to show that he has these standards of just not killing indiscriminately. That wasn't necessarily the like a thought that was driving the way I wrote this. Mm-hmm. I wanted to humanize him. He's not a Superman, but him not killing people, I think, is going to play well later when we're going to come into a crisis point between the two groups of survivors. The good guys and the bad guys who need to work together.
Yeah, and
the people on Everett's side want to kill Long. It's got to be like a really good reason. Like some breaking point has to happen that they're like, let's just kill him. Everett is going to show how he's the man in his way, which is to stand up for what is right against his team. And I'm going to give him a nice, speech about, the law is, your candle in the night. And no matter how much darkness surrounds you, no amount of darkness can ever put out your candle, can ever, put out light. And so you need to be the person who carries that candle, and you need to be the light when you are surrounded by darkness, kind of thing. I haven't worked out the dialogue yet, but it's going to be a nice eloquent speech. And I think that's going to be the thing that audiences are going to relate to with Everett. So I'm sorry that, he's not like an equal badass in the way that Long is a badass, but yeah. I think you can be a strong character in a different way, but still be an equal to the villain. Here's a perfect example. Just one last thing. When you think of like Batman and Joker, Joker can't take on Batman physically, but we all understand that Joker is very dangerous. So something to that effect.
Right.
Go ahead.
Honestly, just knowing that it's purposeful for you makes me feel better. Like just knowing that you have a very clear direction of where the characters are going to go. I just wanted to point it out in case it was not purposeful. Because sometimes you can get so close to the writing, I'm sure, that you may see the scene playing out a certain way, but I want to make sure that it was in service of his character. And I think I totally understand what you're saying. And I agree. And I don't think that lessens his strength at all. Actually, I think if nothing else, it shows that he is a committed person, especially because these are both female, there's something there too. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I didn't want to bring that up. I just neglected to bring that up, but yeah, I want to kind of like have these echoes of the family thing going
Yeah.
on, you know.
Totally, yeah.
Little
And
girl.
that's kind of where my head was. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's lost his wife and I mean, we don't know that yet, but he lost his wife and his daughter. I get that.
Speaking of which, I need to add some shots of him checking his watch a couple of times here so that we don't forget about that.
Oh, okay.
I told you about that, right? Like what that is? The watch checking?
Remind me. You did early on.
Yeah. So I wrote a thing in where he checks his watch, his pocket watch all the time.
Oh, with the pictures.
And we don't know that there are pictures. We just know it's a pocket watch.
Right.
So what the hell is he looking at? Why does he keep checking the time? Right.
Right.
And I want that revealed towards the end that it has his family in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I really have in terms of notes. I have a story question for you. So we're now, how many pages? 58 pages in?
Halfway through the movie.
We're an hour in, at least, or almost an hour in, right? Right. When are we going to see Sam making a repairs?
All right. So here's what has to happen now. And once again, a lot of this story probably has to get compressed so that we don't feel like we've been watching this movie forever and what the hell is happening, right? Like it's just dragging. So here's what's going to happen. We have the fort scene because this is where, you know, we have to educate the audience on the rules of the world now. Now that we've introduced all of these new elements, got to teach the audience these are the rules so that you don't feel like just anything can happen.
All right.
We have, you know, this zombie at the fort. He's going to bite one of the Epitaph soldiers, and he's going to bite him on the neck so that the transmission happens quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have this concept where if you're bitten on a limb or something, that the infection takes time to get through your body. But if this if you get bitten like on the carotid or whatever,
Yeah.
go straight to your brain, you're now infected, you're crazy. So the Epitaph soldiers are going to get infected quickly. They're going to go into the mess hall where everyone's having breakfast. They're going to start infecting everybody as well. And then people who aren't infected, like the watch commander and the watch, you know, they are going to just start shooting at soldiers, right? And it's going to be gunfire.
Yeah.
Outside, Lieutenant Major, or whatever his rank is, he'll be returning with his, I don't know if it's a battalion. I don't know what the amount is, what the proper group name is. But it's regiment. There you go. His regiment of soldiers. He'll hear gunfire at the fort and think like, oh, they're under attack. So he'll run everybody there. And this is where we learn about like, oh, the infected are the first phase of the zombie. They get killed and they think, the soldiers all think, oh, okay, the threat is over. But then they start seeing the zombies get up. And, you know, that's when like Lieutenant Major is going to shoot one in the head and realize, all right, aim high. So then there you go. And then they'll decide, you know, they'll talk to the watch commander. What happened here? You know, oh, well, we had these soldiers coming from Epitaph. And as soon as we start talking about Epitaph, we're going to cut back to Epitaph. And the tense situation, I know this is kind of cheating. The tense situation that I built up will be kind of like on the tail end. Like they will have kind of resolved it where townsfolk have worked together to like corral these zombies and they're pushing them into this abandoned building. Carl will have been bitten by his daughter, but like just on the hand. And there you go. So they're not going to get everybody. Like, for instance, Bill is going to be up and about, and he's going to see, you know, oh, this is what they're doing to the sick people. Oh, I'm sick. I better avoid them. And he's kind of like, he's weak, right? And he's kind of moving around Sally's. And Sally and Zeke are in there, and they're not open yet. I don't think they're going to open because of what's going on. And Bill is kind of like thumping on their walls as he's going around because he's, you know, he's putting his weight on his hand because he can't really walk very well. And so he's leaving like these smears on their windows, right? And he's thumping around the building. And then we hear thumping from the secret passageway where Long came from. And that's when Zeke's like, oh my God, you know, what's going on? And then they open it and it's Sam.
Oh, okay.
And then there you go. And then Sam's going to get brought up to speed like, Long's where? Oh man. And then you know, he'll see where the zombies are being stored. He's going to talk to Long a little bit. Fine mess you got yourself into now.
You got a lot to pack in the next
5 pages.
No, I'm just saying there's a lot here. A lot of story to tell. I mean,
I know.
How many pages are you targeting?
Well, it's 120 at most.
120.
You know what's funny is that on Final Draft, it has like this progress bar at the top, and I can see I'm at 60 pages. But what's funny is that the limit is 120 pages. And I'm like, okay, so it really is like an industry thing. Like, stop at 120.
Right. How funny. You got a lot to write there, man. I mean, you've just explained a lot of pages right there. That's probably 40 pages you just told me.
That's what I'm talking about, man. It's like it's all coming together now. Right?
Yeah. I love the direction.
Okay.
Cool, man. Well, that's, like I said, there weren't a lot of notes, so that's all I really have for this app, man.
All right, Brian. Well, let me just address something really quickly. This is probably going to bust our hour and 30 target we normally hit, but that's fine. So I'm noticing a marked change in your how much you embrace the film and the ideas I'm running by you and all of that. And I know that you're starting your own project and you're kind of experiencing what I'm experiencing. I hope that you can still look at this critically. Like, I don't even know how I'm saying that. Like, I don't even know if that makes sense, because I know you, and I'm not saying you're not looking at it critically, but even if you weren't, you would still think you are, right? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I hope the essence of it is coming through, though. Like, I just want to make sure that you're able to look at this objectively, without necessarily like trying to think about like, oh, are his feelings going to get hurt, or am I being a bad reader? All of that. Just tell me, like, does it suck? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Like, don't be afraid. Like, don't second guess. Like, I just want it to be unfiltered, I guess.
Yeah, you're always going to get the truth from me, the straight truth. You may get it a little bit nicer than some people might get it, but you'll always get the essence of it. So if I think something is not good, I'll tell you why, because I don't think there's any real merit to saying this sucks.
Right.
I think the merit is if I really didn't like something, it's not engaging with me, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess to address your what I think you're trying to tell me, in terms of I am drinking the Kool-Aid to some extent, right? Because I am accepting that this is the project, which isn't necessarily my forte or what I really like from my own entertainment. And I think that's important, because you're not trying to reach, artsy people who only watch, foreign films. You're trying to reach an audience. And so I'm trying to put myself within that space and to make sure that I'm looking at it critically, as someone who would enjoy that, or as someone who enjoys just entertaining films. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't worry too much about if you're not. I know the last couple episodes you haven't really got a lot of criticism from me necessarily, and I think that's because the last couple of sets of pages have been really good. And if I do feel like something is not being properly addressed or something like that, I never have any problems telling you that. I mean, I think that to do otherwise would be to do you a disservice, because I do it at the end of the day, I want you to be successful. I want you to be able to sell this thing. And if I am just being fanboy number one, then that's not going to help you. So I would never worry about that happening.
I'll give you a name, Brian.
Yeah. What's that?
You'll have a full name.
Fanboy number one. Fanboy.
Because it would get confusing with all the other fanboys, So
there is.
Oh. Touche.
It's funny.
All right. Well then, I have nothing else to add. So let's talk about the website. Are you visiting our website, letswritethismovie.com?
I am.
Here it is. It's on your screen. Look how beautiful it looks. You just click. Actually, which one? Too many windows. It's this one. Just click any of these episodes, and you will see that I am turning in pages every week. Just scroll down, and here are the new pages. You can flip through them. And if you see anything that provokes some feedback, please feel free to leave it here in the comment form below. if anything we've discussed also piques your interest, then you can also leave a comment here on YouTube. And we are also on Twitter. Look at that. Oh, I have a notification.
Oh,
I know. It's amazing.
I can't see it, but I believe you.
So I post occasionally here. I have some exchanges with people. We have 479 followers so far, and we are grateful for every single one of you. Please stop by the website, stop by YouTube, leave a comment, let us know how we are doing. And if you liked this episode, please give us a like and subscribe. It really helps us grow the channel. Brian, is there anything else you'd like to add?
What are you thinking in terms of timing for the companion piece, the podcast version of this?
Oh, right.
Soon, right about the time you get me the ranking that I need for the
rank. Oh, right. No. So I'm always trying to think of ways to expand our reach and expand our broadcast. It's just the time to do it, But that'll be my action item this weekend. Here's what I'll do. I'll try to get you the first 5 episodes in MP3 format.
Cool.
And if you can just do your thing or teach me how to do your thing.
I'm on it.
All right. Great. Well, then there you go. So let's target by next week, by the next discussion episode, we'll have a podcast presence on iTunes, Google Play, possibly SoundCloud, and anywhere else. Fine audio recordings are offered.
Yes, all those things. The only reason I say that is because I have heard from people that YouTube is generally a one-sitting type of experience in terms of, someone will usually sit there and watch what they're watching and make it all the way through, and they usually won't come back if it's, if they leave off midway, which is very much the opposite of how they experience podcasts, which is they'll come back and days later finish up an episode. So given the generally long form that you and I take with this show, it might be a good corollary.
Okay, fantastic. Well, then I'll get on that.
Sweet.
All right, Brian, this was actually a pretty good episode. I think we did a lot of good discussing. I mean, that's not really the word, but exploring. This was a good exploration episode.
I agree. I'm looking for, especially now that you whet my appetite with what's coming, I can't wait to read the actual pages.
Yeah.
So just do me a favor. If you have the chance, give me like 40 pages. I'll really enjoy it.
I wondered.
I'm not going to be greedy, dude. You give me those 10 and I'm happy.
Okay. Because I could have written more. I was like, I could write more.
Then sandbag it, dude. Just give me 10 at a time.
Yeah, because that read took a while. 10 pages of reading.
It did. It was awesome, though.
Yeah, it was fun.
Fun.
All right, Brian, I will see you next week. Everyone watching, I will see you next week as well.
See ya.
Oh, I need my water. Mother lover. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Lover of mothers. I don't think he's recording yet, so I can't give any interesting asides. Oh, well. I feel like I'm particularly hairy today. Together. You have to. You're like the Mandarin version of that reading.
What?
The Mandarin.
Oh,
from Iron Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
Together.
I'm just saying, it's what it sounds like to me. I think if we overlay my voice and the recording, be spot on, just like when you used to do that for Angel. Yeah. What a fine student you've become.
Is that when I did like right on top of it?
Yeah. If I hadn't lost faith in my memory of what he said, it would have been perfect overlay, but I kind of messed up a little bit and hesitated.
It was like you're talking to, whoever that was. Oh, good teeth, dude.
Thank you.
Are you recording right now?
Huh?
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just wanted to make sure I didn't have any something stuck in my tooth. That's embarrassing.
Great teeth.
Yeah, let me make it a little darker.
Set that mood. Yeah. This is Brian and Renee. Let's write this movie at night. With the Mandarin live.
Oh, I'm never gonna. What was that, Brian?
It's a little surprise for you.
Okay, fantastic.